be hard not to see some of that. Well, despite the fact that Mother Nature has decided, or planet Earth, that, hey, it's time to start blooming, we're going to have temperatures that drop back below freezing. So a hard freeze possible for some locations in the extended forecast. We're timing that out and the latest on the drought monitor because, yes, believe it or not, we still do have drought conditions for some parts of the state. So 52, that temperature though at 7 p.m. tonight is the cooler air that has been the story for now. We're 45 by 10, 41 is look toward 1 o'clock in the morning and back in the upper 30s by early Friday morning. That means frost a likelihood for quite a few spots to begin early morning Friday, and this is not as cold as it gets. Yet another burst of even colder air on the way as we look toward next week. Outside in Starkville, though, this evening, as is the case for most locations, it was cloudy, it was windy, it was chilly when we were in New Albany talking with the folks there at the Public Service Commission Northern District earlier on today. But as we look outside right now in the Starkville area, that wind finally calming down a little bit, still out of the north, about 9 miles per hour, still a little bit of a cool feel to it. No true wind chill at this instant, 57 there in Oktibbeha County. Again, appreciate the North Mississippi Storm Chasers for sponsoring or for partnering with us on these cameras around the region. In Pontotoc, we're 57 as well. That wind a little bit more easterly as we're starting to recover, and that'll shift southward tomorrow, trying to kind of bolster temperatures. So from the 50s for afternoon temperatures today, it'll be more like upper 60s as we look toward tomorrow. Rolling Fork, still 57 degrees on those northerly winds and still some lens flares there from the bright sunshine. Mama Justice Doppler radar, again, no precipitation out there at this time. No cloud cover even. Looking for clouds. I got to go all the way up here, up into, say, Missouri before we have some high and thin clouds. This batch of clouds will move in overnight, provide just a little bit of a blanket. Not going to do a major impact to hold temperatures up, but maybe holding them just a little bit milder as we look toward tomorrow. Our next front, as you can see, at least one of the next fronts back to the north and west. This system here kind of slides through. As it does, not much in way of precipitation, but I think another one behind that will be a focal point for some rain chances as we head toward the weekend, in particular the latter part of the weekend. And I think we could be dealing with perhaps some strong thunderstorms with that limited chance there. In saying that, let's talk severe risk here for a moment. And then again, these risks always placed by the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Not one for today, not one for tomorrow. By Saturday, not a severe weather risk as well. But by Sunday, we do have one that does include much of North Mississippi here under that level 2 out of 5. Now, listen, they don't put out a risk on level 1 when we're 4 days out, which technically, if you count today, tomorrow, Saturday, day 4 would be Sunday. So this is as low as the risk goes at that point, but confidence at least there that we'll have some thunderstorms. And if there's enough moisture that some of those thunderstorms could be strong to severe, that risk shifts eastward as we head toward Monday of next week. And then beyond that, much drier air becomes the story. But as we kind of keep it on the map here, this is one of the limiting factors, the dew point. It's a measure of moisture based on the same scale as the temperature. When this number is, if you've watched this at all, you know I talk about the dew point probably more than any consultant would allow me to if we didn't own this. But when we look at the dew point there, the browns that you see here, that represents drier air that's moved in. There are real questions of whether or not there's enough moisture for severe thunderstorms on Sunday, or whether storms are rather unimpressive as they move through. I'm hoping that latter is the case, and very well could be, because that would be, our 4th severe weather risk in 8 days by Sunday? Hopefully not the case. This is one, I think, limiting factor. Again, see how much dry air has moved, not just across Mississippi, but the entire southeastern United States. It's going to keep it, again, mostly clear as we head throughout tonight. Bring things in here a little closer, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe some high and thin clouds. That would be about it. I depict a little bit of low cloud cover, maybe some fog back out there toward Monroe, Louisiana, south there close toward Natchez, but not something we really have much of here in North Mississippi to start the day with that next front still to our north and west. So as we look over the course of the next 24 hours, we'll start off 37 for your Friday. We're 44 by 9, 60 by noon, and then upper 60, so back up a little above our normal, our 30-year average for this time of year, under those mostly clear skies, a little cooler than we were last week for our high school baseball game of the week presented by Casey Lott. We'll have our forecast for that game of the week coming up here in 60 seconds. We'll also look in more detail at those storm chances for the weekend. Storm Finder allows us to, again, kind of correlate our greatest confidence level on where storms are strong. As we mentioned, fuel that limiting factor. We're tracking who's most likely to see that as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center in 60 seconds.
Game day brings its ups and downs. celebration and disappointment, anxiety and relief, friends and enemies. You can always argue over who should have won, but everyone can agree on great food. Appetizers, entrees, drinks, party platters, or even the taste of sweet victory. There's something for every season at Eat With Us restaurants.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that we can get help. Let's see how far we can go. Love, your mind.
This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Well, when you have the storms that we've had recently from time to time, that can make it tricky on equipment. Our camera there in the Oxford area provided by Phoenix Building Solutions. As you'll see here, it looks like it's kind of got a conglomeration, a little bit of the background there of the map still showing through, but we'll look more about the radar here in a minute. But unfortunately, still down from the power outage earlier this week. I mean, 3 chances for storms so far this week. It's taken down a couple of our cameras, the one in West Point, another one of those. Most still working with the North Mississippi storm chasers there, and hopefully we'll get that one back up and going next couple of days. Those that are completely clear, as we are dry and clear as far as the eye can see in Aberdeen. Monroe County checking in at 59 degrees right now as we head out there into the Delta. Again, it is everywhere here across North Mississippi. Lots of sunshine blaring away there, and maybe the best way possible, finally warming up in Clarksdale, only right there. A couple of very thin high clouds. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. Thank you so much for supporting us. Myself, our meteorologist Gabe Maynard. We'll talk to Gabe here in a few minutes about the drought monitor, but as you'll note here with the rain we had yesterday, certainly making a bit of an impact on that. We'll check some of those rainfall totals when we look at that drought monitor come up in a couple minutes. But as we go on a longer loop here on Mama Justice Doppler radar back to last night, obviously the thunderstorms that we had here up in North Mississippi moved right on out of here. And I'll kind of restart this loop here for a moment because unfortunately we did have more active and severe weather and damaging weather down in South Mississippi with the storms that moved through. We just got kind of lucky on the wide shot here, and not lucky. In this case, the main upper level system more focused closer to the coast, and you can see when all the ingredients are in place, the kind of active and damaging weather we had. Some storms north, we had the fuel, but yesterday the upper level winds and everything to go along with that, more focused south. That's why storms stronger just south of our area. So the ingredients have to be in place in the right proportions for us to see whatever kind of active weather we're going to see. And in this case, we were somewhat lucky by the fact that the upper level winds weren't quite right. This weekend, we find ourselves in what we call a high shear low cape, or a lot of ability to organize storms, the shear, and low amounts of fuel. For Sunday and really late Sunday night, we could have some thunderstorms there. The question is whether or not there's enough fuel for them to become severe thunderstorms. That's what we're going to talk about here with Storm Finder in just a moment. But for your weekend plans, Saturday, we're good to go. We are dry. We are clear. Little breezy, 74 that peak temperature. We're 78 on Sunday. And again, storms more likely late in the day, but real questions about how strong they'll become. Here's our severe risk. Most locations under that level 2 out of 5 severe weather risk for your Sunday, meaning it's not impossible to get a few reports of wind damage out of this system. I think tornadoes would be an incredible stretch. It's non-zero chance, but if I were putting a percentage on it, we're maybe 0.5% on that chance. I'm not convinced. It'll take a real ratchet up in moisture. I just don't know that that's going to happen out of this. Hopefully it doesn't. Wider shot here shows, again, center of this threat closer out here to Arkansas, Louisiana, Jonesboro, Little Rock, back there towards Shreveport. Here is why, and Storm Finder shows it for you. Again, Storm Finder, something you'll find only here on Mississippi Live Weather. No chances for your Friday, no chances for your Saturday, and it is Sunday before those chances start to come back. Now remember, I showed that severe risk, more solidly kind of focused, back just a little bit. especially to the west of us, out into Arkansas. And here is why. As you'll see, our upper level storm system, you kind of see the spin of that there, kind of kicking through fairly quickly. As we have our frontal system start to light up with some showers and thunderstorms there, we have kind of what will be a line of storms all the way from Houston, Texas, back up toward Memphis, Tennessee. But if you look closely, this is a fairly narrow band, especially compared to what we've had the last couple times. You see the lightning strikes, less than really a 50-mile area there with a 1-hour lightning strike showing up there for Sunday evening back out in the Delta. That tells me this is what sometimes we refer to as one and done. You get the one real chance, and then once that's over, we're past it. And so when we look at this, I'll go a little more 3D on it so you can see where the lightning is, showing up the tallest. We don't have an incredible concentration of lightning strikes with this. As it moves in and through, we still show some showers and thunderstorms along that front. But notice how the lightning almost is completely gone by 10 p.m. here on Sunday. Could it be more than this? Absolutely. But even when we look at our storm chances, you don't see any of those brighter pinks on this. So this is kind of low confidence. Luckily, like what we had yesterday was low confidence, but in the opposite way. On Wednesday, we had a high amount of fuel for a while, and then we mixed that down, and so then it was lower than what was necessary. But we had stronger upper level winds. Here, we have a lot of, we had more limited upper level winds. Here we have quite a few bits of shear, stronger winds aloft. It's not the way to describe it. We have stronger shear aloft, but we have less fuel. And we still have some thunderstorms that'll move through, but it's a very narrow line of thunderstorms and a very narrow chance for them to end up producing some stronger weather with them. You'll see the odds of producing storms become much, much greater as this system goes out here into Alabama and Georgia. The reason for that? More time for moisture to move out of the Gulf of Mexico. The front we had today and the front we're going to have tomorrow limit that moisture, but farther east, there's a greater time for that moisture return. And that then means that the storm chances, the purple we show on there, are greater, and the likelihood of storms becoming strong to severe, much more likely as they approach the East Coast, which is why there's a severe risk for your Sunday, really late in the evening, and one for Monday back to the east. That Monday one, at least in my mind, a greater chance of that verifying based on at least what we're looking at here. Our no school day forecast for your Friday as we're wrapping up spring break there. Wake up temperature 38 degrees. Again, this brought to you by IMPC. 57 by snack o'clock and 67 degrees as we head toward the afternoon for our peak temperature. One of the fun things, fun, maybe not fun, either way, I got the opportunity today, I will say it was a fun experience, to go over to New Albany to see the folks at the Public Service Commission. They honored our team here at Mississippi Live Weather, as well as some other meteorologists here in North Mississippi, for all the coverage we did during the recent ice storm. I bring this up at this point here, again, to say we're just so thankful to have so many great public and private partners to work with here at Mississippi Live Weather. And we thank you so much for your reports, your patience, your understanding as we went through the ice storm. But the Public Service Commission just did such an amazing job of relaying us information, being there to answer your questions. We're just so thankful for the partnership we have. But I pulled this up because the little girl you see behind me there got to tell a joke. If you look on social media, you'll be able to see that there. Told my wife's favorite joke that I didn't think my wife was. Anyway, I'll let you look that one up to check it out there. I don't want to steal her thunder. But anyway, we're about ready for snack o'clock to be nap time here in the Lawpon house. It doesn't include maybe some kids next week. Excited for the kids to go back to school, though. But excited for the wonderful time we've had with them this week. So looking for the last a couple days here, spring break on your Thursday. As you can see, we're going to, again, this evening, keep conditions dry and clear. By tomorrow, obviously, will probably be clear as well. And we start the day that way because we just have initially we have these northerly winds today. They've been so breezy. They calm down. We switch them back to the south tomorrow, and that does start the process of trying to bring a little bit more moisture back. Temperatures were about 37 there in Bruce and Houston for highs on your, for lows on your Friday morning. Not highs, thank Lord Jesus, not high. But we're about 38 there in Eupora, Kosciuszko, and Louisville for low temperatures. Normal is 43. So yes, we're below normal, but we're way above our record. So this is really a lot closer to what we should see versus where we have been recently. So wind chills, pretty similar to the way they were this morning, low 30s. It was not warm this morning. And as you head back out to work tomorrow morning, not going to be very warm as well. probably fairly difficult to convince your kids to go out and play early. Mine said, want to stay inside most of the day, and certainly have done that as a result. As you'll see, futurecast here, a few clouds near the Tennessee state line there, 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, mainly high and thin clouds, kind of a sign of that sort of west-northwest flow that we have there in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Southerly winds, though, kind of moving through here, only a few high cirrus clouds, but we keep it dry into your Friday afternoon with the first of a couple of those fronts getting a little closer to us by late Friday. So highs normal this time of year, 66. We're 69 in Tupelo and Amory, 70 degrees in Houston and Bruce for your afternoon. Again, we were near record highs much of this week, back closer to what we typically expect. Clarksdale 66, 67 for Greenville, and 69 degrees in Belzona. Our high school game of the week presented by Casey Lott, and this is going to be a really nice forecast, I think. I'm going to probably have the jacket with a layer on it because that 50 by the conclusion, a little bit cool. Maybe not, obviously, nowhere near as warm as we were last week, but still a pretty nice game out there at the ballpark. A lot more easy to contend with that than maybe the winds that we've had around for parts of today. Again, appreciate Casey Lott for sponsoring our Mississippi Live Game of the Week. From moving in from the northwest, this one fairly weak as it's nudging in, kind of trying to sustain the drier air for just a moment here as we go into your Friday night and Saturday, sort of stalling out close to us. But that moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to be difficult to get enough of this in here by the latter part of the weekend. Still, as we look into your Saturday, at the beginning of the day, we are dry and we are clear, though I say clear, maybe some fog down there in South Mississippi and some patches up here where we had some of the heavier rainfall amounts. Gabe will look at some of those rainfall totals as well as the drought monitor come up here in a couple minutes and the latest updates on that. Low 40s out there to begin Saturday morning to maybe some mid 40s showing up for Greenville there at 46 in Cleveland, 47 Greenville, Belzona, and the Greenwood area. So Saturday, again, ahead of that front or ahead of that next chance for some storms. Some of that patchy fog out there as well. Saturday, you can start to see that moisture coming back here out of the Gulf of Mexico, trying to move in. We start to become fairly breezy, and that is, again, that moisture moving in, but really across the entire Magnolia State, we are dry outside of maybe some sprinkles down there closer to the coast. And here's that next storm system. We'll look at that for your whole Sunday forecast here in a second. Some of the components there. We're going 76 in Water Valley, 77 degrees again. Breezy, Grenada, Eupora, Starkville, as well as Columbus. All relatively breezy, all things considered, on your Saturday. And back up above normal. Not the record territory, still 10 off of that, but also 10 above our 30-year average for this time of the year. By Sunday, high temperatures back up in the upper 70s and lower 80s with most of the day dry. Again, 89s are normal, so we're not to that. So while above normal, we're not the record setting with this. So let's kind of pick things up late Sunday. And again, this is where that frontal system is arriving. Wide shot here kind of shows the players on this. We have our main storm system north. And this varies from what we just went through yesterday, where we were lucky enough to have most of the storm south. Yesterday, the low pressure center was down here close to the coast, right? And so because that was down south, that then kept the majority of the active weather south of us. In this case, the strongest kind of upper level winds are mainly up here, and we don't have as much fuel that's going to get up here. It's just that kind of last second moisture, because you can see those winds coming right out of the Gulf of Mexico. If these were powered with as much fuel as we had yesterday, we'd be much more likely to get some damaging winds out of this. Because it's not, that is something that I think hopefully remains a more limited threat. You see how we have more red with that right along that line, directly at the front, which is the lifting mechanism as we go throughout your Sunday evening. We're like 9 to 10 o'clock this evening. It's Sunday evening. So that means Saturday's dry. Almost all of Sunday until late in the day is dry. So in a lot of ways, it's a good weekend for that. But by, say, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., right along this front, it'll be kind of a very, very thin line of showers. There'll probably be some wind with it. And the fact that we, again, are coming off of this ice storm, it sometimes takes sub-severe winds in order to try to produce a little bit of damage. So I think some spotty damage still possible out of this, despite the fact that if I were to get in and dig in here and you look at the exact showers, and really it's enhanced showers right along this front, I think it's just the gradient, gusty winds right along that front, more than even any storms themselves that are the issue. So it might not have much lightning with this, but I think there's still enough of a push. We're so susceptible after that ice storm. That's where the severe potential comes. You can see where there is more fuel out east. Those storms a lot heavier, and even there, still somewhat limited in their overall intensity. Here's a look at the 7-day forecast. Again, we are dry on Friday. We are warmer on Friday. We are frosty in the morning. We're 43 by Saturday. We're 74 degrees by Saturday afternoon. Sunday, that storm chance, rain chance, severe weather chance. Late in the day, most of us are probably not going to see much in the way of storms, but we still could have a brief batch of gusty winds as that front moves in. Sometimes it'll mix down winds from aloft. Non-zero tornado chance, but I think more likely if we're going to see an impact, it's damaging winds from this. And then behind that, it is much cooler than we were today. We're 36 for the low Monday morning. We're 47. That's it for Monday afternoon. That is way below normal. And that 26 by Tuesday of next week, that will be not just a frost, that'll be a freeze, arguably a hard freeze, and one that you need to protect plants from. If you have started the garden, I get it. Been so nice. It's been next to impossible to convince my wife not to do more. And she's already turned over the beds. She's already started that process. She's going to have to cover those up. You're probably going to have to do the same there for Tuesday morning. We're going to probably be below freezing for some spots, even for Wednesday of next week, before temperatures start building a little bit more. We'll go 63 by Wednesday, 71 by Thursday. But the one bogey we're looking at over the week, that chance for storms on Sunday, most will be below official severe limits, but even a 50-mile-per-hour wind gust, while not truly severe, that could be possible, and that could then knock down some branches and things even before and after, kind of like what we had happen last night with some of the winds even after the line of thunderstorms came through. Okay, coming up at 60 seconds, our meteorologist Gabe Maynard joins us. We're talking drought monitor. We're looking again at some of the rainfall that we have seen recently. We'll also answer maybe some of your questions coming in the chat at this point. I see Mary Jones saying, so no bad weather Sunday? Chances and zeros, we talked about a moment ago there. We'll kind of look at a few other things with that upper level pattern right after the break as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center next.
By the time you see the symptoms of lung cancer, it could be too late. Now there's a new scan that can detect lung cancer early. If you smoked, get scanned.
Hate is loud, but love is the majority.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Welcome back to Mississippi Live Weather. You're looking at jet stream and fuel. It's a combination that allows us to see the sheer, to a certain extent, the strong winds aloft and how that tries to organize thunderstorms, overall weather patterns, and then we overlay that on top of fuel. These aren't the only ingredients for severe weather, but they're two of the more important ones that we can outline. And so looking at that combination of jet stream and fuel, you can see this kind of big dip we have here along the eastern United States. That is our most recent frontal system that is kind of moving through some of the locations east there. That frontal system, again, is what's kind of taken away the active weather that we've had. As we look toward the weekend, notice how we, generally speaking, continue to have winds out of a northwesterly direction until Sunday. Then we have this big dip that kind of slides in here. In a lot of ways, this is really interesting because this is kind of the angle that we would look for if we were talking about severe weather. We have what's called diffluence, winds kind of going a little apart like this aloft, or at least the overall pattern aloft, and so the winds kind of follow that general pattern. We have some stronger winds aloft here that would help to organize, maybe help some thunderstorms to rotate. But what we don't have, or at least what we lack, is if we look beneath that, and we look at the oranges. I'm going to go back just a little bit here and show you kind of the oranges representing fuel. See how some of that fuel starts getting up here by Sunday afternoon, but maybe there's just a little bit. That fuel is the limiting factor. And so we find ourselves in what we call a high shear with the wind speeds and low cape scenario. This particular type of severe weather scenario is still somewhat poorly understood by meteorologists. I'll pull up our chat behind the scenes. We'll talk a little bit about this here. But this scenario is something that there's been research done here in the Southeast just in the last 5 years to really start understanding this. But we do sometimes get tornadoes out of this scenario. But fuel tends to be something that a couple days out, we're like, there's not going to be enough. We get to it and there's just enough. So that's one of the concerns that we have on this here. So when Mary asked the question, so no bad weather on Sunday, we still think we're going to get some strong wind gusts out of this, and tornadoes are not impossible. Confidence, though, is really low at this point. As we get closer, we will see. We do have a level 2 out of 5 severe weather risk already for most locations. So I think it's reasonable they might maintain that again the next couple of days. I don't know if they go higher than that. But if they do, if that changes, if that becomes more significant, it's that fuel there. That fuel there will end up being more impressive than what we are depicting here. And that fuel has helped us to produce some showers and thunderstorms last few days. Gabe's in front of our big monitor there. And one of the things we're going to be talking about there, Gabe, is the chances, the rainfall that we've had and how that's affected the drought monitor, right?
Of course, and I think that the rainfall that we've gotten in these setups, albeit they've not produced a ton of severe weather here in North Mississippi. You know, there's been a few strong gusts knocking down a power line here and there, but overall impacts have been much worse to the south. We've been the beneficiaries getting all this rainfall here in North Mississippi, and you see some of the outputs.
One of the things about that you have to think about that is that does mean we have some soggy roots, so maybe a 40-mile-per-hour wind would be more effective, right?
And it did exactly that. The picture is not far away right here, and I can easily pull it up if you missed our broadcast yesterday. We were actually getting some of those reports from well, I said it was right here. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'll look behind the scenes here in just a moment. Oh, found it. Right on cue. Okay, this was what happens whenever we get soggy roots. And zooming it in right there, this was over there towards the Baldwin area, taking 600 folks without power. And look at the base right there. You see how this power line is not snapped? It's instead pushed over. Well, I'll tell you, Baldwin did not have a severe thunderstorm warning. They didn't really have a severe thunderstorm. They did have a lot of rainfall, and they did have some sub-severe gusts, and that is what they were dealing with up there. And as you look at some of those totals over the last 7 days, we're talking 5.5 inches Oxford, 5.5 inches there towards Reform, 2.5 towards Kosciuszko, 3.5 there towards Columbus. And I mean, this red stripe, we're in the 5 to 6 range, with some areas even higher than that, some locally higher locations that were upwards of 6 to potentially 7 inches. So nonetheless, these amounts of rainfall that we've gotten, this makes the ground soggy. Even in a time of year where, you know, those roots are just starting to wake up and they're trying to absorb that water, whenever you're talking 3 inches of rainfall in one of those days, it's to a point where those roots can't absorb it all. So you're exactly right, Matt, that we are reaching some of those looser bases that could be knocked over by some of those sub-severe gusts. But we have been fortunate that some of this rainfall, and I mean, you can see what we're getting over the next 7 days, a large part of this actually from Sunday, because beyond that threat, it's pretty dry, but some of those totals amounting to a ½ inch, 1/4 inch, and adding to what has been a pretty soggy week this week. So when we're talking about drought, and my wife asked me this question, why are we still in a drought? We've gotten a ton of rainfall. Well, this is the updated drought monitor, and there is some notion to be better. If we go back over the last 24 hours, you can see how, you know, some of those level 2 conditions are dropping to level 1. But that's really it. This heart of the level 4 drought still in place for Clarksdale and around the Batesville area. Unfortunately, just not seeing that get better. Why? Well, first off, we're in an extreme deficit. I mean, looking at those 30-day deficits, we're still on the lower end of that. But a note with that, we need this rainfall to happen over the set of a couple of days, not all at one time. And so that percent of normal precipitation has gotten better, but you're still looking at some areas below that 100% threshold. And especially in that level 4, we're only at about 50% what we should normally be at for this time of year and over this last 30 days. So that becomes a big issue. I mean, we're 25 plus inches over the past 365 days, the past year, and 10 to 15 inches there towards Pontotoc, New Albany, and Oxford. So
that's a significant deficit when you think about that. You know, that's 2 feet less rainfall than they should see. That's how it's a reminder that when we look at the drought monitor, it's a climactic thing. It's a long-term issue, right?
Yes, exactly. And so, you know, you're not going to fix it in a week. You can make a dent. And that's what we'll often refer to some of these big rainfall events as, is a dent in the drought monitor, but not taking it fully away. So we need days and days and days of an inch of rainfall. And if we get that over a set period of time, over a couple of weeks, and of course this will start to look better. But I mean, you're talking, let's see, an inch of rainfall every day for 2 weeks. That's 14 inches. We'd still be in the deficit. And so that's an absurd amount of rainfall, but still, because we are in such a drought, we do need even more than that. So we're hopeful that as we head over the next couple of months, as we enter kind of our wet season, we do get some more of those rain chances. And I'm looking at Sunday's threat and, of course, hoping and praying that it's not severe weather, but I'm also looking at it as, hey, we get some more rainfall, and we do need that here in North Mississippi. So there is a positive, at least with all of this.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned that threat for severe weather. Again, revisiting this here for a moment, does involve most locations here across North Mississippi. This is not a high confidence scenario. Behind the scenes, we're talking like, I don't know if I see it, but we're still learning more about high shear, low cape events, where sometimes the parameters that we would typically look at, we're like, but you just have the right winds aloft the mix down, just enough moisture in the right spot. So we'll see. You can sometimes get very little lightning and still damaging winds out of this.
Now, I'm curious because I saw the positioning of that low on our Futurecast a little bit more towards the north. Do you think that they take this at all more north? I haven't exactly looked at the instability up there, but based off of yesterday, the positioning of the low kind of drove that setup. I know it was a completely different scenario with high instability and low, what is the word I'm looking for? Low shear. There's a word. I'm curious in this case if they take
like
it.
that. Again, we don't cover that. I didn't look super hard up here, so I don't want to add too many people to that as well. So good question. I don't know if I would have gone with a level 2 risk on day 4, which is what we have here. But that does not mean it won't verify as we get closer. I think for us, the reality is we're coming off of this winter storm and all of the tree limbs and stuff dangling from that. I think it's reasonable we could have some issues from that. So that's why I don't think it's unreasonable at all.
And the gradient winds in all of this, I mean, we're looking at a significant drop in temperature. So
you call it pressure gradient winds in particular.
Yeah,
we call it gradient winds behind the scenes, but basically it's called the pressure gradient winds because of the pressure gradient with the storm system itself, right?
For sure. And that can, while it doesn't necessarily show severe weather, it can still be sub-severe winds that can push over some of those trees, push over some of those power lines like we just saw a moment ago. And so with this extreme drop in temperatures kind of shows that tight gradient, that tight pressure gradient that we were talking about. And I do expect at least some of those gradient winds to start to be something we're dealing with as we kind of drop those temperatures and get this front to swing on through. See the difference in the air mass is a very cold air mass back behind it, whereas that leading edge is still pretty warm and decently unstable. It has enough instability there.
So what we're looking at here, this is the pressure gradient. These are lines of constant pressure here. And so where these are tightly packed together, we're looking at Sunday, 6 p.m., where these are very tightly packed together. You see there above next to Gabe there. Those are the spots there where you're going to have really strong winds. On the downside here, we can have fairly strong winds with this as well. Where there's big gaps, like down here in the Gulf, there's not strong winds, comparatively speaking. So that's what he means when what Gabe's saying when he means pressure gradient winds. Is you're seeing again the difference, the change there, and how right at the front there's a strong change, and then strong winds behind this as well. I love that. I don't agree with this, but let's be clear. Let's go ahead. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it here. Wear those glasses. Go get those glasses.
Fitting for this, right?
Oh, man. Was it Professor Possible?
Professor Unpredictable.
I'm going to say Professor Possible. I hate that.
Is it possible?
The unpredictable. Let's say Professor No, Professor Possible would say everything is possible, right? Okay.
These glasses are a hoot.
Even with those glasses, okay, so I see some white stuff on there, or well, I guess it's technically blue stuff on this, where we're showing this trying to kick out a little bit of wintry something there for early Monday morning. Could we have some flakes, Professor Possible? Why or why not?
No. I mean, high up, are you flying that day? There's your possible. But down here at the surface, too warm, it's not going to reach all the way to the ground. I would argue if the upper atmosphere is even having a saturated dendritic growth zone or where those flakes can form. So a lot of things that are saying no, but Futurecast wanting to say yes. And as we look at that 7-day forecast, it's not exactly verifying that either. And I have to look directly at it because these glasses, like I said, are a trip. As you can see, we're 54 degrees Sunday morning, 36 Monday morning. We need it to be 32 degrees. Are you waving?
Calling me.
Matt, what do you have?
I think we're going to see flakes Monday morning.
You do?
So here's what I think. They're picturesque. There's like, is that what I think? Yeah, that is what you think. I do think it's not unreasonable to see little specks of flakes there. Now, let's be crystal clear. Who's going to school? Everybody. Who's seeing it coat the surface? Nobody. But it's not at all unreasonable, I think, for us to see a few flakes early on Monday morning with this. Let's kind of pull that back again there as we kind of show it. Yeah, I mean, this happens from time to time. I think it's really pushing it. I think you'd have to look super close, but I never, ever, ever doubt a person in Mississippi's ability. So I might as well take my glasses off. So I'll claim it's because I don't have my glasses on and you have your glasses on. That's how we come up with this here. I wouldn't at all be shocked to have a couple of flakes with this because, but again, the temperature is above freezing at the surface, so it's all melting before it comes in contact. So I'm going to say, does that make me Professor Possible today?
You get the glasses then, because you're speaking the possibility.
I'm the Oppomat is what I am. I'm the Oppomat on this, the opposite of what Matt typically would say. Okay, I want you to show, before we go too far down this risk, our friends over at the North Mississippi Storm Chasers, popping in a minute ago in our discussion behind the scenes, and this is where I do have to have my glasses to see this. We're up to 15 tornadoes by James Bishop's count so far here for the state, including 8 tornadoes yesterday down in South Mississippi. So while we did not have any up here in North Mississippi, 8 tornadoes so far confirmed in South Mississippi with yesterday's storm. That's a lot, and we got lucky comparatively speaking, right?
And we'll get those tracks up for 10 o'clock. I'll work on that behind the scenes to kind of get those graphics together.
How about you pull up that video? While you're pulling up the video, I'll disappear behind the scenes for a second. I'll let you pull up the video and talk about it for a moment of some of the damage that we had down in South Mississippi. That sound good?
Yes, and I also have a look at that dendritic growth zone if we want to talk about those flakes again.
Oh, we're going to nerdcast this. Professor Possible is doing this. Okay,
hang on.
Show me this video real quick.
Okay, so the video, I think it's under, I got to make sure which video it's actually under. I don't want to click the wrong one. So let me go behind the scenes. So yes, it's this one right here. So there you're getting a look at some of the damage. This was down in Macomb, Mississippi, and you can see that there's some pretty significant damage with the trees being knocked down, the garage door being blown in, and unfortunately it was where the tree fell, and it was on top of a couple of those vehicles, and that is where we unfortunately had to see a lot of that damage down there. So folks are okay. That's the big thing that I've gotten, folks in Macomb are okay, but we have gotten one fatality down there in South Mississippi due to these storms, at least one right now. So hopeful that that number doesn't climb any higher, but the fact that we have one life lost is enough to where, it does break your heart to kind of go over that. And it's a reality that we have to unfortunately face here in North Mississippi, is the fact that, these storms can be life-threatening. Maybe not a strong tornado, but if we don't prepare appropriately or go to that safe place, or, some of those trees fall in the wrong direction, unfortunately that can be life-threatening. And that's why these storms do matter. That's why we tell you guys to go to your safe place. That's why Matt, I was on my soapbox and you took me off with that jacket.
Did I mess with you? Go ahead and finish your soapbox real quick.
Well, just basically, please stay safe. In these events, while they're not exactly a level 4 risk like what they had in Illinois the other day, it is still something that can be life-threatening. We had a level 2 risk on Monday that we have seen the life of one be lost, a child in the backseat of a car as it was hydroplaning off the road, and the driver is still missing to this day. Folks are going on day 3 of that hunt, and still no confirmed reports of where that body is. That's on a level 2 risk. That was in a non-severe thunderstorm impact with that flooding there on the road. So impact there. But then we're talking about some of those tornadoes down in South Mississippi. I don't know the rating, but I can guarantee you they were EF0, EF1. I didn't see anything that was much higher than that in some of those debris signatures that we saw, or some of those winds. So I do expect that to be EF0, EF1, and we'll look at that at 10. But, that's still something that could be life in this case for both of our severe weather risk days this week. So please prepare. Sunday we have that level 2 potential, and while it doesn't look like an incredible setup, it is still possible, and that's why we need to go ahead and get those safety plans in place so we can stay safe and see next week and see some of that cold air moving in, Matt, and that's kind of what you're dressed for the occasion for.
So I joked about Oppo Matt, and this is one of those Oppo suits that we got for a promo at the TV station a few years ago. So I guess I am pitching that a few flakes aren't impossible. Let's look at that dendritic growth zone, because that does not look like an impressive any kind of precipitation sounding behind you there. So what are we looking at?
A very dry sounding, like you're mentioning. So in order for us to get a saturated atmosphere, we need that green line, the dew point line, and the red line, the temperature line, to be basically equal or parallel the whole way down. And with this setup, while we do have at times it meeting, there are these layers of drier air. So that means if a flake even were to form, say this yellow area there, which we'll go over here in just a moment, is saturated, doesn't really have a lot of potential to make it all the way to the surface because of this drier slot there in the middle of our atmosphere. Now this yellow, I know this is a lot of lines, a lot of different colors, and it's like, Gabe, why does this matter? Well, this is what we call an upper level profile, an upper level wind profile. And as we get a look at these parcels as they move through the atmosphere, we can see that that yellow there is what we call dendritic growth zone. Well, what is a dendritic growth zone? It's an area where a snowflake can form if it does have a saturated profile. In this case, doesn't. And so that means while flakes, it's cold enough up there to form, we do need it to be more saturated than what it is. And so my doubt with this, while I do think that flakes are possible, Matt, in the right areas, if it does get that saturated upper level sounding, there's a lot of dry air behind this front and it moves in pretty quickly. So I think that limits our moisture potential, and I think that would therefore limit our flake potential as well reaching the surface.
So you're saying there's a chance?
If you put a number on it, I would put a 2 right now, a 2%.
A 2% chance of accumulation?
Seeing it. Not accumulation, seeing a flake.
I'm just poking at you. You know what I'm doing here.
I guess since I'm saying there's a chance, Professor Possible. I don't even think these fit my head. I don't think they go all the way down.
I didn't get the big-headed Gabe size on it. Maybe we'll do that next time.
There was an issue.
Hey,
with
listen,
hats going up.
So again, as much as we're joking about this, to be clear here, real quick, and I'll change what's behind me for a moment. I'll pop up the graphic here for a second, and we'll, I guess, bring it back here for me for a moment. Is it possible that Monday we see a flake or two in the morning? Yes. Is it likely that you're going to school Monday? Absolutely, 100%. Take it to the bank. But, occasionally you can get just cold enough behind one of these to have a few little flakes. So, hey, we're looking at it, but I don't think so. So I got to go back to the regular jacket on that one there, Gabe, because just not going to do it. So anyway, I'll bring Gabe back in here. Hey, it's probably time for us to kind of wrap things up here. I did mention the chat. You want to see what people are talking about in the chat here for a moment?
Sure, yeah, you can pull it up. So, yes, I'll see you guys at 10, of course. I think that Matt will get the 10 o'clock off because there's no strong weather threat over the next couple of days. I can teach you guys about the cold, of course, and that's what we're dealing with heading into that extended pattern. Tennessee Valley Weather talked about it potentially going higher, and we trust those folks up there. So, and they're looking at their specific area. If they're saying that it could go higher, I would not be surprised at all with the positioning of that low pressure system. Appreciate that, Jade. I did try to do my best professor impression there, but I will say that there would probably be no teaching being done because I have a point of focus probably about that thin in front of my face whenever I'm wearing them. So I don't think you can do much weather forecasting with these glasses, Matt, but they look the part for sure. Very professor.
Very professor-ish. Professor Possible.
Professor
Watch,
Possible.
next time I'll try to say it was whatever I was going to say. Not Professor Perfect, definitely not there.
Oh, please
So,
don't.
yeah. Hey, if you want somebody, watch our next, forecast. We're going to have that again. Gabe mentioned a moment ago, coming up at 10 o'clock here on Mississippi Live Weather. He'll have an update related to all of the active weather forward. And ultimately, tonight is just some cold air. We do have some of those really chilly temperatures next week. He might give you a super early look at what some of those low temperatures are like for next week there. the probably too early look on some specific numbers for kind of the basement numbers looking toward next week. That's coming up on Mississippi Live Weather at 10 p.m. tonight here in the Room to Room Weather Center. And if you have not checked her out in the morning, our meteorologist Maggie McCauley there, Monday through Friday, 6:30, 7, 7:30 a.m. with updates on your forecast. And she'll get you out the door with just how chilly it is, preparing you accordingly. Maya certainly has been around from time to time this week. We'd love to see her when she's kind of popped in behind the scenes. Maybe she'll make an appearance tomorrow, but Maggie definitely will. 6:37, 7:30 a.m. here in the Room to Room Weather Center. We hope we'll see you then. We'll see you at 10 o'clock. And thank you so much for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather.